Hey. Hey, how's it going? So, I have some cards and a few things I'd like to discuss with you. But first, please look at my signs. So, as you may have noted on my sign behind me, the big white one, it says allow. Allow is a word that has been resonating really strongly with me lately. And as soon as I noticed it, of course, it was in everything, in all of these significant things I was watching, or at significant places in what I was watching, the word would arise or come along, and it would just be like, oh my god, be all full of meaning. So, then I started thinking about it. Well, what is it about that word? And so here come the notes. Allow, but where does agency come in? Jesus, take the wheel. Okay, so you're driving the car, or so you're driving, and the car starts going out of control. Do you not even try to prevent imminent physical pain or even death? Do you somehow suppress reflexes and the healthy manifestation of fear that exists to flare up and warn us of danger? I mean, I don't know if I could turn that off, So, anyway, do you... okay, read that. Where was I? That is more than I currently have the capacity for, to be able to shut those reflexes off. I do see how you or I would have to alter my innate reaction to self-preserve. Let me repeat that. I do see how you, by which I mean I, would have to alter my innate reaction to self-preserve. Again, I don't know how to deprogram that. I think that's like pretty deeply buried in the whole instinctive, to self-preserve. Okay, maybe the instance is straining the metaphor. Of course, you will protect yourself from bodily or emotional harm. Many of us would instinctively move themselves between something that would randomly occur and another person, particularly one we would collectively see as vulnerable. A child or someone infirm due to age or illness. It occurs to me right now that probably no. Oh. It occurs to me right now that probably know what. It seems like whatever the outcome, there's an experience to be had that itself is the prize. It's hard to accept an experience that looks, feels, and is bad as positive, particularly if we're at the center of it. If I look at it that way, I remember that shock waves, or just energetic waves, radiate from a central impact point in the form of a shared echo of the initial event. Someone is injured in some high-profile way that garners attention farther and farther from the point of origin. Someone falls and requires medical assistance, and a call is made, possibly by a companion or onlooker. In both cases, conversations will take place Memories will embed and will be processed for retellings. That can happen. Or I think that does happen. Sometimes we remember people and incidents when they, not when the resonate, when they resonate with something from our own personals, are awakened. So yeah, when sometimes something that happens to people make us remember people and incidents that are awakened by some similarity or whatever. We maybe see an opportunity to do more in a similar case when it wasn't possible prior. I just left that hanging. Some sort of self-redemptive healing. I feel like it's something we can feel a strong desire to achieve. To reclaim and rectify a situation to our satisfaction. To make things right in the world again. Like a reflection on nature or the very fabric of being. It's a strong imperative, or else it's my OCD kicking up. In any case, when is it alright to step in and interfere when one is making to allow? Somehow I feel like this is more than surrender in a way I've yet to define, which outweighs the other. Even standing still when the end is certain and there's no time to save yourself. Stand still and be crushed. I hope we're struck within by a light of beatitude, so obliteration doesn't matter and it's a righteous way to check out. Or do you accept that you've no way to control a hurricane, and after it blows through, you find yourself standing untouched in a doorframe, and all that had been homes and cars and their inanimate contents are an open-air collage of deconstructed possessions, miraculously alive and intact. Either way is blessed. What was I gonna write? Either way, it's blessed. Supposedly, I was gonna write something else. I see I started to, and then I scratched it out. So I don't know if that was clear. That last bit, like, there's a big rock coming. It's like, I don't know, coming from the sky about a football field away, but it's got velocity on its side and gravity, and maybe you don't notice it until it's like right there, and it's so big, like, yeah, now that you see it, you can run, but you're not gonna outrun the size of it. So I mean, do you run? Is it like just have faith and then trust and don't even do it, like, like, what do you do? Or do you do anything? Do you just accept it as like, this is my end, and like, wow, what a way to go, and like I said, hope that you get struck by a light from within before you get smashed to smithereens from without? Or is it like you're in that hurricane and you're like standing in the doorway looking out going, what's that noise? And it's so fast and it's so big, and like, maybe you've never experienced a hurricane before, so you don't know what you're hearing. Like, you just intellectually know, like, these are things that happen in a hurricane, but you've never experienced it. So I've never experienced that, but as big as those things are, and the way they can tear up earth and cars and buildings, and livestock, and you name it, like whatever's on the ground gets flung up into the air. And there are those times though where like a baby gets lost in a hurricane and like sucked into the storm or something, and you're like, oh my god, like you and the parents, I'm sure, but they can't even imagine what those parents must feel. But just as an observer, oh my god. And then, 10 hours later, the baby is found dirty, bruised somewhat, and freaking out, but alive and just buried under stuff. And that's miraculous. I mean, I don't know how else to call something like that, but that's what I meant about the doorway. Like, you're standing there looking out the doorway and you like know a hurricane is coming, and you just sort of like, yeah, but I can't get out of here fast enough. Or a tornado is what I was thinking of, but sure, hurricane too. Kind of the same situation, but let me stick with my tornado. So you're standing in the doorway, and then the thing hits like from the other direction that you're not looking, maybe, and a little something just casually went floating by, not flying. This thing was not a flying, it was not an insect, just a little, yep. Nice story, keep going. Anyway, yeah, so the thing hits from the other direction that you're not looking in, and I'm just trying to like imagine what that must be like in the moment when all of the violence and destruction from the force of the wind and rain and lightning, and I mean, what, I don't even know what all is in those things. The swirl, the churn, and it's loud and you can't see anything, and you're just waiting to die, I guess, or be hurt, and you're probably getting hit with little things and maybe bigger things, but they're not taking you down, and you find that all of a sudden all the noise and everything is over. And like I said, everything that was, all the cars and the buildings and whatever else was on the ground before the storm came along is just in disarray, just thrown into a box and shaken around and just tossed in the general area. Like, now it's your task to find the baby, find the wedding pictures, find, my god, I don't even know what you call it, that you find within yourself to survive that. And not only that, go through it multiple times. Like, you don't like just move someplace else where it doesn't do that. I live in earthquake country. Something else, you also, I mean, I was telling a story to someone the other day about this apartment I lived in LA, and it was on the 4th floor. It was the top floor, and I lived with people from out of state. And I've been through many earthquakes and been awake for them before they happen, so I've kind of seen that there is a before math, and it's interesting. On this occasion, I was in the living room. I had fallen asleep on the couch, and I had a cat, and a roommate had a cat, and mine was like sitting on the couch back above me, and the other cat was on a chair that was like next to me, like a office chair with wheels, so it was like rolled up real close. And I woke up, and it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, already like hot, like it had to be like already in the 80s. And both of the cats stood up, and floop, all of their fur poofed out. I was like, oh shoot, I know what this is. And then they came and sat on me, and we're just all kind of like, okay, here we go. Like, we three knew what was about to happen. The roommates came flying out of the room, and They were so discombobulated they couldn't even like get the door to work properly, and the door was not affected by the earthquake. They just kind of ran around like a cartoon, and I'm like cracking up, because they're like, "What? Why are you just laying there? Run!" I'm like, "Where? Down the stairs in the building from the 1920s? What the heck was that now?" So, okay, something else just flew by. There was a fly over here, but something... Did you see that? Anyway, I was just like, if something's gonna happen, where do you think you have time to run to get away from it? And I personally have the thought in mind, like, God, stairs are... There was an elevator, but forget that. Only a fool would try to get into the elevator in an earthquake in an old building, right? That was at the other end of the hall, so I don't know if anything like that happened. Stairs were at our end, and like I said, fourth floor, and also earthquakes generally don't last that long, so whatever is gonna happen in one is gonna happen pretty quick. That's my feeling. So running for the stairs is like, I don't know, it's more like resign yourself to your fate. You kind of don't have time to do other stuff. You have to allow it to happen. But, like in the case of the tornado, like, there's all this crazy destruction and this force that's of a magnitude that we can't, like, we certainly haven't learned how to protect ourselves from it, and we've both been around together a long time. Like, I see that happen, and I think of solutions, and I wonder why it has never come up. But I don't know if this would work, but it seems to me that if your dwelling was, like, partially, like, the foundation was partially in the earth, and instead of being square shaped and a shape for the wind to just smack into, and like, what happens in a collision with hard things? Something breaks, usually, like always, so maybe change the shape so the wind doesn't have such a aggressive meeting with it, and like, hello, flow, like, wind, planes do stuff with wind. We were able to figure that out. Like, I don't get it. So anyway, now I'm like way off track, but that whole, like, at what point is it interfering with God's plan, or like going against the flow? And I was kind of gratified. A couple of videos ago, one I made was talking about a dream I had about the building that was in, like, the water, and it contained, like, all of the people, like, all of us people everywhere, like, I'm talking massive scale. So a building that could hold everyone on the globe, but that was the building, and it was in a really ferocious, excited passage between, like, a rock chasm, I guess, but it had water in it, so it wasn't really I don't know, just like a passage, but rocky, like, not safe, with the water thrashing, and obviously any craft in there would be, like, in peril, kind of, because hard rock walls on either side, and possibly stuff underneath that you can't see, especially because it's stormy water. And also, this is not like an ocean going craft. It's a building. But eventually the building or the occupants figured out that cooperation is necessary, and the taking advantage of the diversity instead of being afraid of it and trying to cancel it and evict it, and in other ways just eliminate it. It's like, wait, no, there's you can find gold nuggets if you pan, but not if you throw out all of the alleged dirt. So at some point there becomes a consensus like, okay, well, the way to all of us survive is to start helping each other instead of fighting against each other, which, if that's going on, there's no one competent to like be in charge of steering the building. But eventually, like, consensus had been come to, and then the building learned to go with the flow, like somehow adapt to being an ocean going building, and it just moved on. And so the thing that gratified me was, I think it may have been maybe a week later, is I was watching a video which I shared on my social platforms, it was a channeling from Archangel Gabriel, and that's what they talked about, was like being in a storm, and then like a bunch of people being in the storm, and then together, rather than recreating the storm inside their vessel, they learn to work with each other and learn from each other and find useful ways to get them through the storm safely and intact. So we're all on the same page. We may like come out with the information differently, but that seems like there's an agreement collectively about what the message is right now. So I had pulled some cards just for the heck of it, because honestly, I pulled them yesterday, and I was just feeling like a lot, not even my stuff, because actually it's been really successful. My thing, I talked about this, that I'm doing now, sort of in the wake of this upsetting ending that I made, to just keep my energy clear and try and not be too like as neutral as possible, and have as little emotion about things as possible at all. Like, also refraining from being angry and resentful at the situation, because, as always, none of it would have happened if I had not set it in motion. So you can't like just blame everything on other people. I learned that from someone that I know. I would almost say the hard way, but only because I just didn't want to hear it. But if you are part of the relationship, it can't always be the other person's fault only all the time. You are there. You are a participant. You play a role. Whatever you do is going to affect that relationship. So you can't, within the boundaries of the relationship, you're doing stuff as well. You can't just say it's all the other person. That's empirically untrue. So, it was just sort of like the energies of the moment thing. So here's what I got. Me trying to sit by my door and intake all of the nature, and honestly, I've been getting like so much help from doing that. It is like a treasure. It is something I truly value, to be able to do that, because it is where I'm learning to, in amongst other ways, to sort of learn like how to drive my well, that's not the right word. Well, how to control my own frequency, and that ends up like affecting my surroundings. And this is what I mean. I will sit out there and consciously want to vibrate in a way that'll attract bees, because I like bees. And I have found that I'm able to do that, and that makes me happy. And I've been able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to do that, and that makes me happy. And I've been able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have found that I'm able to call like dragonflies. And, you know, I have fo bird song. Like there's an owl. We had an owl here. When I say we, I mean the area, for years, and then for about a month and a half, it was gone, and I was like, oh, like I had taken the owl for granted. Like I heard it and didn't really register me, like for years, like, oh, that's an owl, until somebody came to visit me, and they're all, oh, cool, you got an owl right in the area, and I was like, what are you talking about? He's all, that, don't you hear that? And it was all, hoo hoo hoo, total owl. And I was all, oh yeah, that's always, all the time. And that was the case for years and years and years. Because I've been here since 2004, and it's 2024. And this summer, that owl stopped making noise, so I don't know how long they live. I think they live pretty long. Owl may have been here before I got here, but I guess I feel like it passed away, you know, and I was sad. But on my bike route, one way that I like to go pretty often, there is another owl, and it has a slightly different call. So I know it's not the same one. And I would enjoy listening to that one because it's right next to this garden where the owner of the house doesn't mind if I lurk there. Because she has bees, and she just has a beautiful, gorgeous garden. And it just smells good, and it's at the end of, it's like where I do my cool down. So it's like aromatherapy while I'm doing my cool down and making my way to my place where I live, that's across the next block, whatever, it's close. So and then I really wanted to be as grounded as possible, especially, well, it's not just, I feel like the way I reacted in the situation that I ended, I keep wanting to feel guilty. Like it's just such my normal state of mind. And I don't think I've ever been right, but when something goes wrong, you're all, what did I do? You know, what's wrong with me? And like that stuff. And I was like, I'm not doing that anymore because I didn't do anything wrong. But I have to keep reminding myself, like, don't just automatically feel that way. You get to feel powerful because you did the thing that you always knew you should have done and you didn't do. So having to kind of sit there and go clear, you know, go neutral, and just let these wordless voices speak to me. And I've needed a lot of calming and meditation, but I think everyone has, whether they like made a situation or not. And here is also where I've been, like, you know, I had to make a list of, I don't know for the affirmations, but just sort of reminders of like why what I had the issues with, why I finally said no. And while this was happening, this relationship that had been going on, these were problems that were there from the beginning, and that just got more and more powerful. A need I felt to like put a stop to it, because it was like, this is not, a lot of this is working for you, but a bunch of stuff ain't working for me. And I started to hear, I don't know why this is corny, but I started hearing that Tina Turner song a lot. You better be good to me. And it's like, they were, and they said the best things, and it's just so hard to discern what was real and what wasn't. And because of their astrological sign, I knew I could expect like a certain amount of non-answering to things, but there became a number of things where it was just like a non-answer weren't gonna cut it. And that is why I finally said enough of that. I made I know, like, I've seen over and over, like, don't, like, keep bringing shit up, you know, don't harangue people. But my thing is I will list to you exactly what I'm bitching about, so at no point can the person I'm speaking to say, what are you talking about? What are you referring to? I don't know what you mean. I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about, and that's how you know. But if I don't feel like I'm being treated well, I am going to stop treating my recipient well and extricate myself from the entanglement, because it wasn't balanced. It's hard to explain. Like, there was a lot of good things, but then there were other things that just kept undermining it. And then also the Tina Turner thing, and then the appearance of the guy in the video with the giant red flags. And I'm talking, one of those things has to be as big as the size of a pickup truck bed. And so this guy he'll have a Reddit story and he'll be relating it. He does it very dramatically, effectively, and he'll say like a few lines of the post, and then he's like doing things like running with the flag and jumping with the flag and making exclamatory comments, and it's funny, and it's also right on. So you're just like, he does green flag videos too, by the way, which are also awesome. Dustin Pointer is his name. I suppose I could link a video of his. You write it down so you remember. Did I leave space on any of these to write a thing? Link. Here we go. Link flag guy. But it was like the universe conspiring to go, hey, you know something is wrong. What do we have to do? Like, just beat you up with a giant flag on a pole? The pole from the giant flag? So, sometimes as I pull these things, well, actually I dropped them on the floor, so it's hard to know what order exactly they're supposed to be in, but here we go. Here's where I should have been feeling about like the feeling strong, like instead of automatically reverting to, I mean, I know they're not great ways anyway, like reverting to like taking crap that you know you don't feel good about. And like I said, I should it should feel like this. I did the right thing. I have every right to feel like this, and yet I'm still like, it's hard to extricate myself from this particular situation because there was so much about it that was like, it was like too good to, I guess it was too good to be true. Oh my god, duh. But like I said, there were red flags early on, and it was so good that I just wanted it to be true. And so I know that no matter how hard it is to pull my head out of my bum about this, time will make that happen, you know. I'm not trying to reach out anymore. I am constantly having to beat down thoughts. It's like I cannot like stop thinking about this person and the situation, but it's like it's only telling me like stuff that made me feel good. It's not going, yes, but also this other thing that did not make you feel so good, that made you feel suspicious, that made you feel Like, you just didn't know, like, you were not being told everything. There was just something, everything that you were being told made you ask more questions. So you know there's something wrong if that's happening. I mean, hello. But time moves on, you know? And so when you are removed from things, you can begin to feel hopeful again. And this could be like, and it's obviously an offer, you know, and it looks like it's all lovey-dovey. It's got like the flowers and little gifts on the, I don't know why it's on the ground, but I don't know, little picnic on the ground situation. But it looks like they tried to set up like a nice little thing, and they're hopeful, like maybe it's a romantic partnership that wants to happen. Maybe it's a business partnership. This opens up the door for hopeful things to happen. And I don't know why this makes me think of the situation that was like like when pigs fly, all of that good thing, all of those good things together being real. When pigs fly, you know, nobody's perfect. You know that about people. I know that I have flaws. I've been informed of it. I can see them myself. I think no one doesn't. But I also think that in the situation, the constant insistence on positivity, it became like a diversionary tactic. And it's like, I'm not gonna have my attention pulled away from what everything in my like subconscious and right in front of me is trying to say, warning, to stop doing it. And so time will allow that to lessen. And I guess I was gonna say allow me to be more objective when I look back on it, but I feel like I'm seeing pretty clear right now. I just have this emotional component, this codependency, because I just so want that other half to be there, and it just keeps eluding me. But also I get tons of other messages saying, that ain't for you. The whole like, yeah. And my life has been a testimony to that. There are other things, though, to put our attention on. Intangible things that are meaningful regardless and have a wider impact than just your own personal satisfaction. In order to operate efficiently as a conduit to and for and from these things, to stand inside of the portal and act as a channel, certain elements of the channeler have to be maintained in a certain way to function properly. And everyone's different, you know. I don't know if it's because I'm just starting to access these abilities and this information that I can only do one thing at a time, but I did note that my own stuff that I care about, my own creations, in the past would have gotten sidelined. This time it didn't. I didn't like become like 100% absorbed in this other person and all of their stuff. It was hard though, because there was a major pull, like always everything was so urgent, and like more urgent than your urgency, and like that I didn't like at all. Like that's not, I don't like that. So what that tells me is that I can really give proper concentration to one thing at a time, but also maybe one thing at a time, the thing at the time I'm supposed to be concentrating on and paying the most attention to and focusing the energies that I'm accessing on these more intangible subjects and activities. Reaching into the collective and touching nodal points where I can be effective. I don't know what that means, but I mean, I kind of do, but I don't know what the effectiveness at the nodal points is, but I'm here for it. So, and your life is not over if you're not a part of a pair. Partners are good to have in many situations, but there's partners and there's partners. So, because I know of other steps that I've taken in my life that I haven't in the past, that I've avoided, I know that my future is actually looking pretty darn good, because I have always had this sort of saying, and I know that all of my life, and it has driven me kind of so nuts that it did the opposite effect that I think people wanted. But I got real sick of hearing about my potential when I was young, because in many cases it was like other people had already figured out what I was gonna do with that potential, and I was like, I don't think I could have articulated it for a long time, but I know that I was resentful of, like, quit trying to make me go do stuff that you wanted to do and didn't do, or something. Like, I got it right away, but I didn't know that, like, I don't know, but it was like my mom always wanted me to do some kind of thing, and then other relatives had ideas that they felt that I was suited for, but everybody was really like, I don't know, I felt like it was a lot of pressure. And meanwhile, my whole thing was like, what about what I want? I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. I'm not suited to do that. Who are you thinking about? Am I supposed to change my whole personality or suppress it to go do something I absolutely don't want to do? I understand that this is a departure from the generations before me, where you just did what was expected. I don't know. Maybe that makes me a perfect person to spend, at least for the time being, most of my energy helping the rest of the world transition. Like, I think younger people are going to be more in alignment with what I just said about expectations and things, and it's going to be easier for them to stand defiantly in the face of those expectations, because you have more backup now than, like, I think any generation, usually the rebels will flare up and then life beats them down. And that's too bad, because I think the flares are creative and light-filled and thought-provoking and emotion-provoking and all of the things that you live for. Like, you don't want to be told, like, this is the way you have to do it and everybody does it that way. Well, if you're talking about sexuality, that doesn't work for a lot of people. Like, everybody doesn't want to just be forced to be, like, heterosexual, it's the only thing. Like, that's not true. And we all know that's not true. And when we try to force it to be true when we know it's not true, that causes problems, man. Like, maybe you don't see it right away, or you're not even looking for it, or you're not recognizing, you know, what the traumatization of people can create. Maybe it takes a while, like a seed. It has to germinate and grow, and you know, people do. Like, you can't always immediately address what's ailing you for many reasons. Maybe wrong time, you're the wrong age. Like, eventually, though, things work their way into place, come into alignment. But it also takes probably people who are expending their attention and energy almost exclusively on those matters to keep the ship upright, to keep the ship not capsized, to, you know, maintain the rudder. Is that making some sense? I don't know. Did I just put the cards away? I think I did. Well, the last thing I want to say is I just made that completely sort of personal, sort of, like all kinds of personal, but it's kind of the only interface I have sometimes with this stuff. And I also know that if it's happening to me to some degree on some level, something similar is happening to other people. And that is why we share our experiences. Thank you and good night. I guess I'm not quite done yet. I did mention it in my notes, but I think that I may have either flown past it, or my cadence was so weird it may not have made sense. But I wanted to, I guess, stress the point that allow, I think, is a little bit more maybe informed than surrender. Like, it's a more intensive degree of surrender, a graduated upward level of it, where the focus is, I guess, less self-centered and becomes more about an attention to the effects of what you choose to do. Okay, thank you and good night now.